All right, guys, welcome to the show. Today, I'm here with Neel Dhingra from All Western States Lending. His company did about $1 billion in loans last year. Neel and his team did $100 million, which for those of you who don't know, is a huge, huge number for lenders to do. So we are excited to have Neel on the show. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. We met a few months ago at Gary V's conference down in Miami, Agent 2021. So before we
Yep.
jump into your background and that kind of stuff, tell us a little bit about that conference and why you went to it.
So I had been, a fan of Gary's and following his content for about a year or so. And then I saw the event last year after it had happened. So when they announced that we're going to do it for the second year, myself and my brother who was there with me, we met at the conference. We wanted to go just to, get more execution ideas for how we should execute on this strategy for digital marketing. And it just seemed like, the stuff that they're talking about is on the cutting edge of what agents and lenders need to be doing to be relevant going forward. And, I think a lot of that stuff is not covered at other conferences. So we were super excited to go to it. I noticed it's a little bit different than other conferences I've been to because nobody's selling you anything at this conference. Like they were just giving us information, and we thought it'd be a great opportunity to bring value back to the partners that we work with here in Reno and throughout the West Coast.
Yeah, it definitely was a unique conference in that it was pretty much Gary and people he picked and members of his team presenting ideas, not a lot of product or service sales at all, really. None that really stick out at me. That there might have been going on with, like, if you went and followed up with kind of people on his team, but I really
exactly. Like I know they were selling a small business marketing product suite over there, but for the most part, I didn't see anybody selling anything on stage, and it was more just like, giving information. And then the other value for me was meeting people. Like that's how I got to meet you, and I got to talk to you about what's working in your market, and then I got to meet many other agents throughout the country that are kind of like-minded, like us, that can actually give us some insight into what's working. And the cool thing is like everybody's helping each other, like nobody's saying, it's not really competition. Everyone's out to help each other. There was free information everywhere, and everybody I met was really open and, willing to help in any way that they could, which is cool.
Yeah, it was great seeing other people that are recognizing the importance of social media, video media, and that whole kind of movement that Gary is trying to get people on. And he brought together, lenders, realtors, insurance agents, and then I think was the fourth one auto? I forget.
Yeah, there was auto. There was a small segment for auto dealers, I think. But it seemed like the biggest group was real estate agents for sure.
Yeah, they were definitely a large part of it, and our real estate business has benefited a lot in the last year or so on the advice from Gary V when we met him about 6 months prior to that conference at an event near DC. So our start in that world, and it's been fun and it's been very impactful, and we've seen a lot of growth because of that. Now, so we'll get into that a little bit more later on, but first let's give everyone a background of, who you are, how you got in the business, how you became a lender, and what your team looks like, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I started in lending right out of college when I was 22 years old. So I got out of college in 2002, started as a direct lender here in Nevada, and it was just a crazy time. From 2002 all the way to 2008, the market on the West Coast and the markets that we were in exploded. There was just tons of business everywhere. It was a free-for-all, a lot of speculation, all that stuff. So I got to kind of see that as my introduction to the industry. So we had grown our team at the time from about just me and my brother and another friend of ours. From 3 people, we grew it to 30 people plus at that time. And then the market just crashed, as you know, and collapsed in 2007, 2008. And, slowly the whole team dispersed. And it was down to even our business partner left the industry. Everybody left. We had a big office space, and we downsized to just one room. We sublet the rest of our space out, and it was just me and my brother in a small room in the back. And there was literally no activity. I mean, you couldn't, like, nobody wanted to buy a house. The banks didn't want to lend money. So it was a rough couple of years for sure. And then we kind of just wrote it out. We did whatever deals we could. We helped, make some new relationships. And then coming out of that crisis, the market here has just done really well. So we're in one of the fastest growing parts of the country as far as population and job growth. Nevada is like in the top 10 every year for those stats. And it's been crazy just the amount of growth that we've seen. So we kind of rode the market up, and then everything crashed, and we started from scratch all over again in 2009. And from that point on, we've just grown slowly. Now we're back up to about a 12-person team. We did a joint venture with the company and that we're currently with right now, and it's been since then.
Great. Were you mostly refi or refi heavy before that first crash happened?
Well, what would happen was, when we first started, there was a lot of refinances. It was a lot of, it was almost like a call center that we had started in the beginning. But during the period from 2003 to 2007 or 8, rates kept rising. The Fed kept raising rates, and so refinance activity dwindled. But there was a purchase frenzy. Then there was a lot of people buying 2, 3, 4 homes at a time here, just speculating, flipping, all that stuff. So we just kept, providing those types of loans for people. At the end, it was mostly purchase business that we were doing.
Okay, and then it just sort of dried up overnight.
Yeah, literally, what was happening was the products that we were giving were a lot of no documentation required, or low money down or no money down loans. And it was literally like, if you had a pulse, you could get a loan. It was just crazy times, right? So at that time, one by one, those investors stopped buying the loans that we were selling. So as a mortgage banker, we're not a servicer. We originate the loans, then we pull them, and then we sell them on the secondary market. And all the funding sources.
I lost you there. Oh.
So yeah, all of our funding sources basically just kind of dried up, and all those products went away.
Gotcha. So you went from having a successful team to down to 2 people, just you and your brother, rebuilt it to 12 people now, right?
Yep, exactly. And then like I said, we've been doing consistently, from that period to now, 80 to 100 million a year. And last year was our biggest year for our team, where we closed 100 million in business. And we're just looking to keep growing. It's just kind of like we've had some bumps along the way with our marketing strategy, and that's something we can get into too. But that it just, switching to the current market is kind of like there's just so much growth out here, and there's as much business as you want. Essentially, it's just a matter of like, how do you go out and get it, and what's the best way to handle it?
Yeah, there's a ton of opportunity, I think, in your area, in all areas really, but Nevada especially. I've seen a lot of the growth there over the last several years. Yep. And I think there's got to be a huge market advantage to people that rode out that time period, didn't get out, stayed in. You were kind of there at the heyday, kind of there at the bottom. So you probably learned a ton, and anyone who could stick through that was probably in a really great position, coming out of it. So I think that's a great lesson to people right now. If we get a pullback of some sort, and I'm not saying one's going to happen or one will, or what magnitude it will be, we do know from history that cycles are out there. So probably at some point, and who knows when, there'll be a pullback. And, if you can make it through that, you're going to be in an even greater position coming out of the other end of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like that whole thing just taught us, an important lesson as far as how to persevere through the ups and downs. And then also, just like you said, there's just a lot of having to deal with losing everything and then coming back from that is a cool experience just to have going forward.
What was
Even
the
though
biggest
at the
lesson?
time it was too hard.
What was the biggest lesson you learned during that period?
Well, just that like you really have to have a sustainable business, right? So like if your business is relying on one product or one referral source or one ad or whatever you're doing, you really, you're that particular channel of business can go away. Like, if you're relying on a certain type of product or whatever, and that product's no longer available, then, that could be a huge problem for your business. So it just taught me like how to build an actual business that has multiple channels of business, multiple products, all that stuff coming in. And that way you're not relying on one channel or one source.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I've seen Gary lately talk about that as well. He called it the 79-21 rule. I don't know if you've seen that. He same thing as the 80-20 kind of principle. He called it 79-21, I think, to make it different. So you would click on it or read it. And certainly that attracted me, and I read it, and a great point. And, he just used social media as an example today. Like he's 79% all in on Instagram. That's his main platform, but he's not ignoring the other 21%, like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, all of that. And, he dials it back and says he used to be that way with, Google PPC. He was like 79 in and then 21 on the social platforms. And that way, if that channel does go away and one of those, other ones comes through, well, you've already been on it and had some experience with it, market share, and you're gonna get whatever comes next quicker than the guys who are all in on one that could just be wiped out overnight if that goes away and they're kind of caught flat-footed.
Yeah, and like a lot of the excuses, people say you need to pick a lane and run in it, which is true, but there's still time to dabble in other things. And like just like that rule of the 80-20 or 79-21 or whatever it is, there's like whenever we have content, we post it on multiple channels. We're trying to get reach people wherever we can.
Yeah. What channels, what social media platforms are you on now, and which one is your biggest?
So probably like, our business all came from traditional, business relationships, referral sources, and just those connections that we built over the years. But the problem was I noticed the market shifting probably like 5 years ago. And then more so in the last 2 years, where it became less about those connections and legacy relationships and who you know, and more about your brand and your presence online and your digital resume, right? So people were vetting us a lot more online. And so I hadn't really invested in my personal brand online. I had always been just, about the relationships one-to-one. So how could I scale that? How could I scale the unscalable? So I basically, increased my presence on all social platforms. But the one I've noticed we get the most engagement on now is Instagram. So we're networking with the most referral partners there, and we see the most engagement with our clients and with everybody in our network on there. I noticed like by the time we got heavy into Facebook, organic reach was basically, already killed completely. So we just started with LinkedIn on more heavily, but the one that we've been getting the most engagement on is Instagram.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, and kind of shows you, just looking backwards, like Facebook 5 years ago was a lot bigger organically than it is now. You can still get the reach there, but you got to pay for it, right? So
yeah, you got to run the ads there. So like, I think a lot of people, may be in a position like I was, where you're already at 2018, 2019, and you haven't even started, right? And then you might feel like it's too late, like I can't do this. But literally, I went all in on this strategy a year ago, and it's not too late. Like plenty of room to run with all this stuff, and I think you just have to get started. Like people just kind of think it's too late. Or I think you tell yourself excuses why you can't do it. When the truth is you can start whenever you want.
Yeah, and even if you do miss it, like the next thing will be here soon, and the work you put in on whatever platform, it will carry to the next. So I've noticed, because you mentioned LinkedIn, we've started using that more the last few months, and I think the work we've done with just posting certain types of messages on Instagram, using video on Instagram, that's carried over really well on LinkedIn. And organic reach, I've noticed, seems to be a lot higher there than on Instagram. So,
so like the cool thing is I feel like LinkedIn needs more content, right? So the feed and Facebook is completely crowded, right? So you have to pay for placement there. Instagram used to be organic, was great, and now you have to pay for placement there. There's too much content. There's too many people fighting for the feed. LinkedIn is not that way yet. So like if we have professionals that we work with or other agents that we work with, when they simply by liking a piece of content, it spreads far and wide on LinkedIn organically, which is crazy. Like it's wild the reach that you can get organically on LinkedIn right now. Just without paying a cent, just posting consistently there.
Yeah, no, we tried to like put a kind of a dollar value on it, and we've kind of come up with that every post we do on there is worth about $10 or so of advertising on Facebook.
Yeah.
Which is, so, that adds up if you do 4 or 5 a day.
And it seems like that's something I'm learning from you and your team, is that the key differentiator going forward is going to be the volume of content. Because everybody can get started, and then you definitely should start. Like you shouldn't think it's too daunting to get started, and a small amount of content is better than none for sure. But I think the differentiator for the next 2-3 years is going to be the volume. So I've come up with a few strategies on how to kind of build a WordPress content that you can go back to and post from, and to make it easier on yourself that way.
Well, let's dive into that, because that sounds like something that a lot of people could benefit from, especially real estate agents. What are the strategies or tips or tricks that you're using to get the volume of content out there, or do things that you can kind of multiply or repeat? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, so the thing that kind of got me started on this whole strategy was just learning from people like Gary, and even from I followed Grant Cardone's stuff for a long time. I know you guys met him as well and did an event with him. So just learning that like the level of action that you need to take is a lot more than what everybody's willing to do. And just by taking that level of action, you all of a sudden set yourself apart from the entire competition immediately. So what I did was I had been reaching out to agents trying to grow my network and saying the same things that every other lender is saying, which is that I have great product, service, I close on time. And my message was falling dead eventually. Like, so then it was only about who I could get a meeting with, who would actually sit down with me. But the people that were cold to me, they would never, they won't even answer that phone call or respond to that email, because it's the same pitch that they're hearing day after day for the past several years. So I said I needed to differentiate myself and put out the content at scale, and that way show the people that I'm an expert. So I'm an expert at what I do. I do a great job. I have great service, great rates, but the problem is nobody cares, right? So the only way I could get them to listen to me was to put out content. So what I did was I just said, I'm more of an introvert, right? I like to be in the office working on, a marketing campaign or in my CRM or different strategies like that. And I didn't want to do video. I wasn't comfortable on video, but what I did was I was going to a conference, and one of the guys was like, why don't you bring a videographer with you and film it? I'm like, well, why would I want to do that? Like, that's who would want to see that? And I'm like, well, the guy was like, no, the agents that you work with or your business partners or your clients would like to see what you're doing, so just create a vlog. And so I went online to find a video guy in the city where this conference was, and it was in Los Angeles, luckily, so there's tons of people to choose from. I put out a little request on one of those video websites, and a guy responded to it, and I met him there. And it just, by luck, turned out to be a really good guy that has a great editing style, and he was able to help me coach me through creating that first video. So what I did was I created like a long form piece of content, and this is what I help other people with now too, is we'll create a vlog or a long form piece of content for whatever you want to talk about, and then that goes on YouTube, and that's, you know, your content for YouTube, long form, you know, audio on, people are there to watch that stuff. But you can't take that same piece of long form content and put it on Facebook or Instagram, obviously. So I'll use that long form piece and cut it up into micro pieces of content for Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. And like one piece of long form content can create like maybe 10 pieces of short micro content for the social platforms that I can refer back to. So I just started documenting everything. Like I'll have a guy come in on a Friday, and I don't even know what we're going to do, right? I'll just schedule it, and it forces me to take that action. And we just document the day, whether it's client meetings or, you know, meeting with other referral partners or going to closings or, you know, helping other agents or helping coworkers. You just capture all that, document it all. And then within that day-to-day work, there's going to be content that we can use, and we can edit that down to a daily blog. And then we can edit those blogs down to micro content.
Yeah, that is a great way to do it. You make a longer piece, you chop it up, and then you know, the longer piece usually resides somewhere on a platform that's more designed for longer pieces, like YouTube, maybe Instagram Watch now. You know, if you film the video in vertical format, and then
that's like what you were saying was just converting that stuff into long form into short form is the best way to do it. Because what happens is, like, if I have to say to myself, I need to create content today, like I stumble over, what am I going to create? You know, how's it going to look? What am I going to do? All these strategies. And then eventually all that list of things you have to think about, you don't take action on it. But if you just say, I have a guy coming over today, we're going to make content. I don't even know what we're going to do, but we're going to do it. That's, you know, better than what you think, because you're just documenting what's going to happen organically or just a conversation essentially. So like the best pieces of content I've had were not me being interviewed and me talking to the camera. It's just capturing conversation. That's probably one of my biggest hacks or helpful tips to agents that want to get started, is just capture conversation. Try not to be interviewed, because a lot of times, like when you're being interviewed, it looks like scripted and you're very stiff and you're not comfortable on camera. But what if I just talk to you and I filming that conversation? I'm going to talk like I normally would. Everything's going to come across authentic and natural, and then you'll find the content in there, you know, and that just by documenting that conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in documenting. I know some people, they don't think it's interesting, but that's because they're in the business. So, you know, they don't see the value in it because they kind of take it for granted, but you're allowing other people to get, you know, behind the scenes look, which is really, really interesting perspective. So I think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like the other thing is I went from, you know, initially when I first started putting out content, I was like, okay, I need to tell everybody how great I am and this and that about me. And then I figured out that nobody cares about that initially, right? So the way I need to put my content out is think of the audience, what would be helpful to the customer, what would be helpful to the agent community in my area. And so what I started doing was, at these conferences when I go, I would try and in advance schedule an interview or a meeting with one of the keynote speakers. And like the best one I ever did was at Agent 2021, I was able to kind of barter a 10-15 minute interview with Gary, right? And so we got to document that. And that's probably one of the best pieces of content I have on my YouTube channel, and also one of the best pieces of content I've been able to use for micro content, because that content was so useful to so many people.
How did you do that? Was that one of those like buy some wine deals or something that he did? Yeah.
Like the first time I met Gary was he did a thing just randomly on his Instagram saying he was selling shoes, right? So he had a new sneaker coming out, one of the Clouds and Dirt sneakers, and if you bought 35 pairs, he would do a call with you. If you bought 50 pairs, he would do a 5-minute meeting with you. And then if you bought, more, and it would kind of go from there. because he needs the sales, right? So I saw that, immediately took action and bought shoes. And then that was the first time I got to meet him, was at a networking event at his office at VaynerMedia. And then when I saw the next barter come up for the wine, they said, please send us your offers for wine. And so I just sent an email, cold, just responding to it, just to his team saying, I'm going to Agent 2021 in January, and I'd like to buy 21 cases of wine. And each case costs, $200-$300 or whatever. And they responded to me and said, look, we appreciate your offer, but 21 cases is not going to cut it. Like, Gary's time is worth, $100,000 and $50,000 minimum and all this and that. And I said, okay, no problem, guys. I just wanted to throw it out there. Just, was trying. I was only looking for 10, 15 minutes. And then somehow, I guess Gary was copied on email on a Sunday. I don't know if he just picked it randomly or what, but he responded to the email saying, I'm in for 15 minutes. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So we ended up getting that 15-minute interview with him at Agent 2021, and that's on my YouTube channel now.
That's awesome. I mean, that's creative on him, and good for you for jumping on it. And if you guys should check that out. What's your YouTube channel so that people listening can go see that interview with Gary?
Yeah, so you can find it really easily through my Instagram handle, which is at @NeelHome, NELHOME. That's my handle, and then on my link in my bio is my YouTube channel. But that's the best way to find it. And I have a bunch of content on there that's really helpful for the agents, because that's my main focus, is helping the agents in my community. So I have interviews with a couple different interviews with Gary, a couple other guys on marketing strategy, different things agents can do to grow their business.
What does your business look like in terms of, of that 100 million, where did it come from? What were the lead sources on it, if you will?
So it's about 70% of that comes from the agent partner we work with. We help them, and then, they need a trusted partner for their clients, so they refer back to us, obviously. And then the other 30% is just referrals that we're getting back from those clients. So one thing that I really focused on is, as a lender, like improving the experience for the customer. So if we can make, everybody wants the house, right? But they don't necessarily want the loan. So I think as a lender, we get the kind of shit end of the deal, right? Because we're having to ask for documents and put them through the hassle, and everyone's complaining. So I figured, like, we use technology basically to make that process as smooth as possible for the client to find the house, right? And I figured if we can make this smooth, it's going to make ourselves and the referral partner, the agent, look better, and we'll both get more referrals going forward. So I really invested in customer experience over the past 3-4 years. And now, 30% and growing is coming from referrals from the past clients. So whether they send us people directly to start the process with us as a lender, or they come back to us for repeat business, whether they're buying rental properties or they're going to buy a second home or whatever that is. So making sure that they view us as the starting point has been a great piece of growth for us going forward, because I think a lot of lenders are just asking for business, but they don't realize by doing certain things, you can generate the business yourself, and then you can refer that business to your agents that you work with. You can actually bring value and business to them.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've seen more lenders recently getting into that game where they're generating leads and referring them out to agents. So what's your marketing look like to home buyers versus agents? Like, how do you split the efforts and the messaging there?
Yeah, so I noticed, like, the most engagement I get is with other referral partners, because they're on these platforms more so than the customers are, as far as looking for industry information. So that's the content that performs the best. But buyers, it's just been basically giving out information on how they could save money, right? Or how they could hacks, tips, tricks, financial fitness, whatever. I think that a lot of people, lenders, even agents, view financial fitness as a boring topic, but it really resonates with clients, right? So people are looking for, what's a way I can save this amount of money on my payment, or what's the way I could come up with the down payment, or did you know that buying a home in this area saves you this amount of money, and that 10-minute commute saves you $150,000, or property, how to save on taxes, how to save on this. Like any kind of financial fitness is huge. And I think people think it is boring, so they don't invest in it. But from what I'm seeing from the clients is it's a topic that really resonates with them. So what happens is by just providing that free information, I've noticed then the client views you as the authority for all financial matters. And then they come to you when they need their mortgage needs or when they need real estate needs. So a lot of times people are calling us and they don't even realize that I'm not the real estate agent, right? They just reach out to me and say, hey, Neel, I'm thinking about buying a second home. What do you think? So they're asking me just generally what my advice is financially. At that point, I'll try and connect them with one of our one of our real estate agents that we can refer back to.
That's great. What have you seen this strategy do? Like this Gary Vee social media strategy, what has it done for your business? Like what did it look like before you started going all in on this compared to where it is now?
Yeah. So I think what I started seeing was a decline in the traditional business, right? So everything that I was taught from the time I entered the business till now was, the cold calling, the prospecting, the selling, always be closing, always be selling, and all that stuff, right? So that typical, strategy worked up to a certain point, but its effectiveness was going down. I was seeing it firsthand. Clients weren't responding as well to it. Agents weren't responding as well to it. So when I invested in the other strategy, we were doing probably, I don't know, our business was on the decline. Essentially, our year-over-year numbers were going the wrong way. So we were at about 30 to 40 million as a really small team in 2016, and then in 17 and 18 we doubled both those years. So now we're we've gone up 2 times from that point, and that's tough to do at this scale. Like once you get to the higher numbers, it's hard to double your business and triple your business. So that strategy has basically made the difference going forward, and it just comes from just putting out free information and getting the name out there and scaling what was before unscalable.
Yeah, and that's an incredible growth, and you're, to have it early on is one thing, but to continue after you've gotten to be at a certain size, it gets harder to double when you're bigger. Like when you're starting out, you can go, an agent can go from 5 million to 10 million or 5 to 20 million, and a lender or two, I'm sure, pretty easily. But to double when you're at like 50 or more is, says a lot about the strategy and about how you've executed it. So hats off to you on that. Yeah,
and thanks, man. And I think a lot of it is just coming from finding people in other markets like yourself or other people that are actually executing on this strategy, and just asking for help. I've DM'd you, I've DM'd Carrie before, and just ask questions, and you'll be surprised how helpful people are. You guys respond. You'll send a thing. I know there's a ton of people. There's that follow the same people that I follow and that you follow, and we all help each other, which is the cool part about this kind of network that you create online.
Yeah, that's the definite kind of side benefit of this strategy. Is it's going to generate you more leads in your market, but it'll help get you connected with people doing the same all over, and then you can learn from them.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's really changed the business also for me is don't overthink spending money on improvement or events or marketing, right? Somebody might say that, oh, why did you spend, $5,000 on wine? You don't even, I don't even drink wine, right? But that piece of content, I've gotten so much attention from that one piece of content. And if nobody knows you, how are they going to know about the products that you offer, right? So if I can't get your attention, how can I, tell you how great of a person or a lender I am? So I think I need your attention first. And by having these types of things, going to events, improving yourself, spending that money, your ROI can be huge. The leverage you get from one piece of good content or going to one event is massive.
Yeah, the wine thing's cool too, because you can repurpose that.
Yeah, exactly. We give it to clients.
You're not going to drink that many cases, but yeah.
The shoes were tougher, right? I got piles of shoes here that we don't know what to do with. I give them out. We donated a bunch to a school in inner city part of the community. But yeah, I mean, wine we can use throughout the year. So it was kind of a win-win. And then for Gary, it's a win-win because the people will like the wine. He obviously put out a good product. So then hopefully they'll come back to him and buy it directly from him because it's a direct-to-consumer brand.
So if you guys are listening, need some shoes, hit up Neel.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I got shoes and wine. That's what I got right now, stocked up.
All right, Neel, before we wrap up, I want to do the HyperFast round. So I'm going to fire some questions at you. Just give me the quickest answer you can give. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. If you had to start all over again, what would your strategy be?
It would be what I'm doing now, which is going all in on putting out content and building my digital footprint.
All right. What's the biggest piece of advice you would give to a real estate agent or maybe a lender that's been around for a while, but maybe has stalled out in their growth?
I think you have to look at not what worked before, because what's going to take you to the next level or what's going to work for the next 5 years is not necessarily what worked in the past. So I think I would get stuck on old ideas, and you really have to look to people outside of your industry. So the way I learned about all this stuff was looking at people that aren't even in real estate or mortgage. They're looking at this industry with fresh eyes, and then you can get ideas from those people and execute within your industry.
Okay. Biggest piece of real estate investment advice?
I think people focus on the numbers too much, like this deal penciling or the cash flow or the cap rate or the ROI. And I think you want to look more at quality. Like, so one thing I learned from Grant Cardone was to buy quality, invest in the right properties, even if you have to overpay, because over the long haul, that's going to pay you a bigger return than trying to buy on the cheap.
Yeah, that's a great one from Grant. What would we find you doing if you weren't lending or talking to real estate agents or on social media? If you're just having fun, where would we find you? What would you be doing?
Like basically, what I did was I'm either with my family, my 2 young kids and a wife, and we hang out together and do a bunch of family stuff. But if I'm not doing family stuff, I'm working. So what I think is fun is actually working on the next marketing campaign, or putting together ads, or creating a marketing funnel, or doing that stuff online. I think the only way you could put in the hours that are needed for all that stuff is if you really enjoy doing it. So that's me pretty much. I love working on this stuff in my off time.
All right. Thanks for partaking in the HyperFast round. We'll wrap up in just a minute or so. A couple questions before we end, though. What areas do you cover? I don't think we went over that. So I said your western states, but
yeah. So we're based in Nevada. We're one of the largest, or in fact, the largest privately owned mortgage bank in that's based in Nevada. And then we have all the West Coast states: Washington, Oregon, Idaho, California, Colorado, Arizona, and then we're also in Texas, and we're also in Florida.
All right, so you got the warm states covered. You got the income, no income tax states covered.
Yeah, exactly. And then so basically anywhere in the West Coast we can help clients. And then also one thing I wanted to ask you, Dan, was like a lot of the audience I have is agents and lenders as well. And I noticed, like, even with the engagement you're getting with your content, I'm seeing lenders on there as well, because it's a similar audience to real estate agents. And from your standpoint,
I lost you for a minute.
I got you. Okay, so from your standpoint as an agent, what can lenders do to earn business or make that relationship? Because I know, like, lending's becoming commoditized. Essentially, a lot of the lenders are offering all the same products, and like, what works with you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, because of our size, we're able to actually kind of enter in some strategic partnerships, and we've got that with 2 different lenders, and they sponsor a lot of our events. And you have to be a certain size, though, as a real estate agent to be able to structure in a way that complies and is meets all the regulatory rules. I would say outside of that, and this will apply to most real estate agents because they're not to the size where they can do that. Outside of that, I think helping, realtors generate leads or generating leads for them or showing them what they can do to generate leads. So, there was a lender in my area a few weeks ago that approached me and had a referral to give me. And, I'll listen to that all day long. And then we had a great meeting. They followed up with another referral. Now we're actually working on a plan to share some resources because they've got guys that are operating a call center, and we're trying to grow our calling team. So while we're doing that, we're gonna potentially use some of their people to call certain types of leads that we have. So So I think doing stuff like that, doing stuff like you're doing, where you teach agents how to market, how to use video, how to use social media, running ads with them, like things like that that are different than just the talking about products and this and that. Because you either offer a certain level of service or products and you don't. And it's kind of hard for, I think, most lenders to differentiate between that, unless the market is like super, super, super competitive. I just think for a lot of people, there's just such similarity in those old methods. So you got to think outside the box and think of ways to help the realtor's business.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I think you're 100% correct. Like, all of our products pretty much the same across all the lenders. And then like our pricing may be a little bit better, but that's not enough of a value proposition. The rates being slightly better than somebody else's rate is not enough to earn anyone's business initially. So I think that like what you talked about is exactly the point that people need to think is just become an expert at something that would really be helpful to the partners who you want to work with.
Yeah, become an expert. And that's same for real estate agents. Like, if you want to get more business, like, figure out how to help people.
And I think like that was the biggest thing I noticed is you can literally, like, people will ask you, well, how'd you learn all this stuff, or how'd you start doing this if you didn't know? And it's literally on YouTube. Like, you type in what you want to know and go. You have to sift through some stuff, but if you want to learn it, it's there.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I feel like a lot of times people ask, like, how do you do this or that? And if I'm not feeling like dedicating a lot of time to it, sometimes I'm kind of like a smart ass with it. Like, is Google broke? Like,
yeah, exactly.
All out there. It really is. There's no secret.
It's nuts how many people haven't even Googled what they're asking first, and there's information everywhere. So I think there's enough people like myself, like you, that are putting out content. Like, I just watched your guys's one of your recent podcasts, and it was the interview with Billie Jean on video marketing. It was like an hour and a half, and there was just nugget after nugget of information there, and that's just freely available to anybody who wants to watch. Like, there's so much value out there.
We've put out a couple pieces with Billie, and if you're in real estate or lending, you should watch every minute of that one for sure.
Yeah.
Before we go, we talked earlier, but we ask our guests if they have a resource, something that can benefit our listeners out there, if they can contribute that to what we call our HyperFast Growth Kit. And it's something we'll put in the show notes and on the homepage, hyperfastpodcast.com. What do you have that you think would be of value to our listeners?
I have two things. So one is going to be my interview with Gary, and the topic of that 10-minute discussion is specifically what lenders should be doing as far as a contact strategy and as far as a marketing strategy to millennials, which is now becoming the biggest portion of buyers going forward. In our market, it's now become the biggest portion of our first-time buyers. So the way you market to these people is completely different than what you were taught in the years before. So that video is up on YouTube. I'll provide the link to you guys. And then the second thing is I have a slide deck on how to get started with videos. So if you are an agent or a lender and you have nothing, you're at ground zero, like what are the tips and tricks to get started? And I have a list of those, and I'll provide that slide deck to you guys as well.
All right, so we got the interview with Gary Vee. We got the slide deck on how to get started with video. So those will be available in the show notes and on hyperfastpodcast.com. Neel, if people want to get a hold of you, realtor wanting to learn how to do video marketing, maybe another lender wanting to know, or just people who need a loan in the states you cover, Florida, Texas, all the western states, Nevada, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So the easiest way is on Instagram through direct messenger, or and that is, my handle is at Neelhome, NEELHOME, and I'm on Instagram. And then also you can send me an email anytime, Neel, NEEL @allwestern.com.
All right, Neel, this has been a great episode. A lot of great nuggets on how to use video, how to use social media. So I appreciate you being on the show and sharing with us. If you guys are listening and like the content, or if you don't like the content, either way, leave us a review, leave us some feedback. We want that feedback. We want to know how to make the show better. And if it's great, let us know. If it's bad, let us know. Either way, just give us your feedback. And thank you again, Neel.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, hit that like button, leave us some comments. We want to know your feedback, and share this with someone that you think could benefit as well. And if you want to see more great videos, click this playlist up here, or better yet, click right here to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss any of our updates.